Today we're going to talk about switch access to the iPad, computer, and Chromebooks. Our learning target is simple. We're going to learn how to access the iPad, Chromebook, or computer with a switch. Some options for students using switches to access the iPad include the Bluetooth switch, which is Bluetooth. It has different modes, and you can plug in a different external switch. So if you're looking at this interface and saying, nope, my student can't use those switch buttons, you can plug in external ones to the Bluetooth, and it'll act as an interface versus a switch itself. Then we have this real simple Tapio switch interface, and this will connect directly into your iPad using a Lightning to USB adapter. And then you can directly plug your switch into the Tapio interface. And then there are some built-in options for switch use with the iPad. So a student doesn't even need an external switch. If they can tap anywhere on the iPad screen, or move their head, or make a consistent sound, they can use those things as a switch. So let's talk about iPad switch access. I think the most important thing to remember when using a switch accessible app on the iPad, so an app that was designed to be used with a switch, remember that you do not have to turn on switch access. In fact, this will mess it up. So leave your switch control turned off if you are using a switch accessible app. And when you're using a switch accessible app, remember that the app is looking for a specific keyboard input, like the space key or the enter key. And some iPad apps will let you change the keyboard input that it's looking for. So some switch accessible iPad apps include Boardmaker 7 Student Center. This is one where you can change the switch input key. Now, the apps by Help Kids Learn are very simple cause and effect apps, great for starting out, and many of them are very age respectful if you have transition age students learning to use switches. But the Help Kids Learn apps are looking for the enter key. So be sure that your switch interface is set as that. And then many students use the app TD Snap for communication. So by default, TD Snap is looking for a space key. But again, you have the ability to change that if you have a switch that is programmed to give a different keystroke. For example, the enter key. So once you've identified the iPad app that you want to use and the key press that the app is looking for, then you can start to adjust your switch interface. And so go ahead and watch the video here about how to change modes with the Bluetooth switch so that that switch press will be recognized by the iPad app that you want to use. Now, believe it or not, the little Tapio switch interface does have some adjustable settings. If you turn it over on the back, there are some tiny little switches that you can turn on or off. So on is up and off is down. And using just a paper clip, you can adjust those. And so here you can see if you want your switch to act as the space bar, you're going to want all three of those switches in the up or on position. If you want your Tapio switch to be the enter key, you're going to have the first switch up here in the on or up position, and the second two switches in the off position. Now this fourth little white switch on your switch interface, that should always be in the on position. So you can see you have lots of other options here for what action your switch press will take on the iPad, and you can adjust those accordingly. Now, if you have a student who wants to access the entire iPad, including apps that aren't switch accessible, using the built-in switches can be a good option. So go ahead and watch this video to see details about how to do that. Now, Boardmaker 7 has a lot of meaningful switch accessible activities that students can use. So they can read through books using Boardmaker's Core First Learning and Reading Avenue curriculums. They can also access games for switch training. So if your student is new to using switches, there's some whack-a-mole games and just general target practice and matching. And so students can use their switches for that. And then you can also make all kinds of communication boards to start trialing whether your student is a candidate for dynamic display AAC. So those are just some of the things you can use Boardmaker 7 Student Center for. Go ahead and watch the video if you want to know how to set up scanning in Boardmaker 7. Now let's switch over to using switches on a Chromebook or a computer. So there are some different switch interface options for that. We have the Swifty, which is made by the same company as the Tapio and looks very similar. It just doesn't have all the same iPad specific features that the Tapio does. So you can program that Swifty to be used as mouse clicks or keyboard keys 1, 2, and 3. You can also plug in 2 switches using a splitter into the Swifty, or you can use up to 3 switches wirelessly using something called the Beam. So that's Swifty, and that's just going to plug into a USB port on your Chromebook or computer. Now the Hitch 2 will also plug into your computer or Chromebook via USB port. And this one has several more options for what action you can program the switch to complete. So you can use it as mouse clicks, arrow keys, or you can program in multi-step macros, and you can plug in up to 5 switches into the Hitch. So just like the Tapio, the back of the Swifty has some little white switches that you can turn on and off, and the chart here below lets you know what actions your switch will take based on which switches you have on and off. Here's an up-close picture of the Hitch 2. You can see up on the top, there's a button to scroll through the different modes here. And once you plug in the Hitch 2 into your computer or Chromebook, you will see each of these modes light up. And that's how you can move through which mode you want your switches in. And then down at the bottom here where it says switch 1, switch 2, switch 3, switch 4, and switch 5, that's where you would plug in your different switches directly into here. So while you can use the computer and Chromebook switch interfaces to interact with programs that are switch accessible, such as Boardmaker Student Center, which we already talked about, Vizzle, Ginger Tiger, keep in mind that you can also use them in common programs like PowerPoint, Google Slides, and Canva presentations to advance the slides. This just gives the student a little bit more independence in what they're doing. So in Canva, for example, if you are using the Hitch 2, you could program your switches to do any one of these. And so you could program your switch to be a D, and then when the student presses that switch, they would get a drum roll. You could also program their switch to send a U for unveil, and then they're going to get the curtain here. Lots of students also like the C for confetti, or the M for a mic drop. So that can be a really fun way for students to interact with Canva presentations. Now, another thing you can do for students who use just a single switch is they can choose their own videos to watch. And they can do that through Google Slides if you embed or insert the videos really into Google Slides, Canva, or PowerPoint. It works very similar. But as students press their switch to page through the slides, they'll get a preview of the video. And if that's the video they want to watch, they don't do anything. If it's not the video they want to watch, they can hit their switch again and go on to the next slide with a new video. So think about how you could create videos of you reading a book. You could grab videos from YouTube of music videos, those sorts of things. So go ahead and watch the video on this slide if you want to learn how to create a slide deck where your single switch users can choose the videos they want to watch. I hope that gives you a nice overview of how to use switches with the iPad, the Chromebook, or a computer.